paradox. I think that global spirituality and consciousness, and actually global philosophy, is extremely relevant in the year 2003 because we are in the state of globalizing our culture in a way, the world is, which doesn't mean homogenizing it, but it means making it sort of acknowledging actually the interwovenness that it has always had. Actually. There's this silly idea in the quote unquote the West that somehow everything started in Greece or it started in Palestine, and that everything else was all disconnected from that in the ancient period, which is completely false. India and China and all of Eurasia was always interconnected. And the Persians at the time of the Pre-Socratics and Socrates and company and Aristotle, the Persians had toll roads. They had like freeways running from the Indus River to the Aegean, and there was kind of a commonly interconnected culture. And now the Eurasian cultures are sort of driving a kind of globalization of world culture. And one of the key things I think particularly is that modern materialist science has come to a kind of dogmatic state, which we can call, I think very correctly, scientism. Not scientific attitude, but scientism. They'll sometimes call it scientific materialism. You have like E.O. Wilson, Richard Dawkins, these kind of people, Daniel Dennett, Steven Pinker, triumphalistically talking like we have control, we know what reality is. They will talk. And therefore that's part and parcel of this idea that somehow Western civilization is superior and dominant and knows reality better, but maybe there's some nice religions out in some tribal areas or in Asia or something, few cute things that people dreamed up, some meditations and things, but we know reality, we're the reality arbiters. And that is actually delusionary and false. And there are different ways of knowing, and there are different traditions of science, and industrial science is not the last word, and in fact, it could turn out, if we carefully, 100 years from now, that industrial science was a sort of extreme of analyticism and mechanical meddling with the processes of nature in an unhealthy manner that actually brought the human species to the brink of extinction, in fact. And that luckily some sensible people reined things in and reverted to sort of less tampering with things, and reverted to a more holistic type of wisdom, although not scrapping the analytic achievement, but bringing it into, embracing it within a larger thing by learning certain lessons about the human psyche, about spirituality, from some of the more ancient cultures that precisely did not intervene. Like, for example, Chinese science, where they invented almost all of the inventions that took the Europeans into global conquest mode, like navigational things, like chemical things, gunpowder and so forth, but didn't use them for world conquest. Which then the Europeans, because they were more backward and poor, did use them for world conquest. And then thought, we are superior and we know better because we can beat everybody up. But actually, beating everybody up doesn't guarantee your superiority except in sort of muscle. And actually it looks like beating everybody up when we're down to the level of where we've reached the level where we can dismantle the atom, we can dismantle the gene and tamper with it, we can sort of dismantle all the microelements that sustain life, and we can exploit the resources of the planet, but then are heedless of the pollution and the destruction of these chains of interactivity. It may turn out that we've done a lot of incredibly foolish things, and the ozone layer, the water system, the climate, global warming. It's incredible what we haven't done to make our own life unsustainable and untenable. And if we're going to restrain that, we need a lot. Now, the Dalai Lama and myself, we like to argue, me following him, of course, he's more wise, definitely, but we like to argue that there's kind of a complementarity between the sort of outer science sophistication of the West and the philosophies that undergird that, and the inner science sophistication of the East, especially the Buddhist East, where not so much the religious East, but the sort of psychological Buddhist East, and that the control of the inner person has to match the ability to intervene and control outer processes, because an uncontrolled inner person is going to overexploit them for greed, is going to overuse them destructively out of hatred and anger and war. And so there has to be an education system that trains us to control the inner energies, or the inner poisons, you could say. And so maybe there's a complementarity there. But we also, I think, in the past have perhaps a little bit too much flattered the West in doing so. Like, it's something really great they did, to control the outer thing, you know, the way they have, and it's really great. Whereas I think they shouldn't be so flattered, because their control of outer processes is only partial at best, and has mostly been used destructively, actually. It's like you can say about medicine, oh, it's great, they have the best surgery, they can do all these great surgical interventions. And you, of course, you appreciate that when you break a bone or you have something really delicate that needs healing by surgery. But frankly, surgery they got good at because they had too many wars, like Civil War and things like that, World War I, too many senseless, asinine wars, ripping too many people to pieces. And they lost track of, like, whether to eat spinach or broccoli, you know, and then they allowed the food industry to put all kinds of pollutants in the food chain and in preservatives and packaging, and ridiculous, messed up the food production on the planet, you know. And now genetic tampering in corn and rice and all these things. And so I think we should stop flattering them, and we should say, good, you're good in some Western science, but you guys are out of control in your use of it. So you no longer are licensed to drive all your machines and your nuclear weapons and your gene splicings and things until you have developed true inner self-control. And you really, you owe it to the planet and to yourselves and future generations to develop a tradition here at Oxford, or in philosophy departments, or in schools like in Haverford, where you, Ashok, are, or my Columbia, which is this overly militarized university. You know, the science program departments are working too much for chemical companies and drug companies and military research in an indirect manner. Even computer science is all like funded by the Pentagon. And you just have to learn how to deal with yourself. And so you just have to stop acting like the humanities are some sort of window dressing to teach all your scientists and corporate people how to have nice conversations in cocktail parties. And actually the humanities are the guts of your education, and they have to be more empowered. And you guys have to keep out of your labs until you're going to be nice. We're sure you're going to use everything in a good manner, in an ethical way. So I think, I mean, that's long-winded, I'm sorry, I'm a professor. But I think that if true mutual intellectual and scientific respect is accorded the different civilizations, whether they developed modern machinery or didn't, and the one civilization that pushed industrial modern machinery to a kind of extreme, which is the Western one, stops acting like it is in control of everything and it knows everything. This is really critical.